Welcome to the AME Food Testing Show. Today's topic, automating inspections, observations, and audits with inspectiTRAC with Jerry Van Oort and Tom Doheny of Russell and Associates. Jerry Van Oort has had over 25 years experience in the fields of sales and marketing, management, operations, and general management, employee training and development, management with Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 agriculture and food industry companies. Prior to becoming VP of Sales and Marketing at Russell Associates, Inc. in 2003, Jerry became an owner and was named CEO of Russell Associates in 2008. He has real-life management experience in dealing with the demands and requirements of complying with government regulations, the challenges of creating a safe work environment, managing risk and exposure to direct and indirect costs of employee accidents, workers' compensation premiums, and product quality and performance liability claims. Tom is the Vice President of Information Services. After earning his degree in information technology, Tom began his career with Russell Associates in the late 1980s, producing custom training modules and technical manuals. Tom has been instrumental in steering Russell Associates and its clients toward computer-based training. He served as a product manager for the first computer-based training project completed by Russell Associates and has been project lead and developer for numerous software and solution projects since. Tom works with many clients in his role as product manager for the inspectiTRAC system, a mobile inspection, observation, and audit information system developed by Russell Associates. Now, welcome with me, Jerry and Tom. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to update us on anything to add to your introductions?
Well, I think it's covered where we are today, or how we, kind of the journey that got us here. So, Tom?
I think that covers it. Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, let's begin. Let's talk about the Food Safety Modernization Act's new reporting requirements, which is a big driver for our audience of 59,000 now, food production, food quality, food safety, and food security managers throughout the U.S. and the world.
Well, Andy, I don't know if you're wanting to expound on that to some extent from your vast knowledge, or how you want to approach this topic. Can you just expand a little bit on that?
Sure. Well, the FSMA, which is what the acronym is now pronounced in the industry, is a new governmental regulation governing how we, as food producers, report certain data points to the government. We are required to keep certain records in a food safety program system, and that is becoming somewhat burdensome now.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
No, and that's certainly our understanding as well, and we've been tracking the progress as all throughout its history here, as it was passed into law and all the rulemaking and all of that, and certainly we're familiar with it, and we think it is a driver, the verification piece, if you will, to all the processes and that occur every day in a food production facility, and so that certainly is a very good tie into our use of technology with inspectiTRAC. But so that is our understanding, that there is a greater demand and expectation for inspection, observation, audit, and all the verification that goes necessary under FSMA.
What kinds of issues would food companies face when completing these safety audits, inspections, and observations?
As we look at it, Andy, from what we hear in our conversations with food industry companies, there's five that are most important to them, and in each instance, the priority changes. But we do know that time and labor required with paper-based systems is a real concern. There's some good data that would show a considerable amount of required labor and time to not only collect the data, but then to transfer that data into some usable format, whether that's a simple spreadsheet or whether it's being entered into a database or whatever, however the data is being transferred, but that's a considerable time requirement each and every day, each and every shift. And another major concern is accuracy of data collected, illegibility, because of the work environment, the moisture involved, and other contributors to having poor, if you will, transfer from a pen or a pencil onto a paper form. Getting the accuracy of the data verified is a real concern. The transfer and accessibility of the results, being able to act on the results, being able to have the results communicated, and then from that transfer and access in a timely manner. The volume of paper involved, and some of that is driven simply by the economics involved with the volume of paper, but anytime you handle paper, have to file it either into 3-ring binders or file folders or whatever, there's certainly a time and cost involved in that, and then there's an environmental impact as well, and there's varying degrees of concern about each of those concerns related to the volume of paper. And then, of course, the last one, which always surfaces and is part of our conversation today, is the compliance with various regulations, including, FSMA, FDA, USDA, OSHA, and other local, regional, state authorities. And then, of course, the certification program requirements for many of the food industry companies that are necessary to do business with their current customers. So those are the major concerns that we hear about and are expressed to us in our conversation with food industry companies.
Well, Jerry, that was an excellent summary of the 5 major issues. Let me just throw in 2 more. One is, having done a number of audits myself on food facilities, food production and food quality facilities, I'll have to tell you that the advantage of having a time and date stamp is monumental, particularly with computerization, as compared to a pen and ink. The challenges that I see with paper systems as an auditor are that quite often the employees will write in a pencil format, and that is unacceptable because of it's subject to erasure. Additionally, if they use a strikeout, it needs to be initialed. So the issue of time and date stamping and the accuracy of the data, I think, is very helpful. And the whole issue of paper documents is also a challenge. Many times I have to go into a facility and they need to pull a box out of storage, which is off-site, which is a bit of a challenge. Could you respond to those?
Well, absolutely, and that's exactly what, in our conversations and as we do discovery and assessment of needs, that very concern of being able to, number one, place the individual in that facility with a time and a date stamp, and then even extend beyond that in a signature that's trackable or traceable, then that the individual signs off on their completion of that particular inspection or observation. And then, of course, exactly what we would hear from people is, I have to go and dig out of the archives the boxes and that contain files or binders, and they spend hours assembling all this to try to prepare for here again, a third-party audit, or potentially then from a government auditor or whatever that's coming on site. So that's the very things that we hear about.
Well, Jerry and Tom, let's talk about inspectiTRAC's computerized collection process. It's quite unique in the industry, and that's the reason you're on the show.
Yeah, and inspectiTRAC is a mobile inspection, observation, audit, data collection system, and combined with Manager, it also does alerts and notifications and reporting of that data.
Would it be helpful to explain sort of are you looking here specifically for the process that we follow, kind of the functionality? Andy, what are you looking for specifically here?
Well, Jerry, why don't you review both? They both sound intriguing.
Well, Tom, in terms of the software suite and how it serves the needs of food industry companies, if you could maybe just kind of review what we have and how they're interconnected and how they work together for the customer.
And yeah, the inspectiTRAC system is comprised of three components. The first being administrator, which you create your inspections, which you would take your paper-based, essentially questions and put them into the system, essentially loading up a database for the mobile collection system, which is inspectiTRAC itself, which is usually run on a tablet computer, Windows-based tablet computer. So you can take it out into the plant, do your inspections, answer the questions, fill in information on that computer. Some tablets have keyboards. Some use handwriting, which they have very good handwriting recognition, or you can use a voice recognition software with it, which makes it very easy to collect data and make notes, everything with that. And then the system automatically uploads the information to a web-based database, which then you access using Manager, which is the third component, and you can view your reports, print off anything you need to print, if you need to print anything, and email that information to people that require it.
One of the things we heard about too, Andy, is the need to alert and notify the proper stakeholders or people involved in the process of food safety and security and quality in the plant. And that's what Manager was. If you think about what it does, it allows them to set up a hierarchy, if you will, based on who needs to be alerted or notified in advance for reminders, who needs to be notified of completions of issues, to be able to allow for corrective action, tracking, and an initial assignment of responsibility for the resolution, and being able to track that, and then have one place to go to in the plant for that information. And so the dashboard feature that Manager has that allows that quick and easy viewing of what's important to that individual based on their need for access to certain information. So it's set up and designed to be able to have improved communication, including alerts and notifications and schedule within the plant for all those people that are involved in the process of collecting the data, as well as using the data to act on what they learn and obviously provide corrective action where it's needed.
Well, gentlemen, those appear to be very innovative crystallizations of the transfer from a paper system to a centralized electronic web-based system. I'm particularly intrigued by the mobile platforms because in my audits, I see people walking around with paper that I know that they'll trudge back up to an office or a computer terminal on the plant floor, and then somehow that'll be transferred over to a database of some kind, maybe an Excel spreadsheet, and then that will be reformatted before it's sent out in an informational, action-based or actionable information-based database that they can then use to communicate with their management team. Can you talk about those mobile platforms? Does that include like an iPhone or an iPad?
inspectiTRAC is based on Windows, the Windows operating system, and there are a lot of tablet computers using the Windows operating system, and we chose Windows in this case because of the additional uses in plant situation. And our system also is very graphical oriented. We have a map of plants a lot of times, so the inspector or auditor can see where they are in that plant and completing that inspection or audit. The Windows operating system in a plant situation allows that facility to also utilize the Windows tablet when it's not being used for inspections and audits for other systems, other uses, software within that plant. And it can be secured within the facility through the IT department.
Just one point of information, Tom, I think that's right on, but one thing that for the listeners to know, that once the data is captured or if you will, into the tablet-based software then that we use for data collection, now the data can be accessed and acted on with any device, any smart device. So as a manager, supervisor, food safety, quality person, I can be accessing that data through my browser using my smartphone, any quite frankly smart device, or my PC in my office. So once the data is collected, you can access it with any browser, with any device. And Tom, you mentioned the mapping feature, and that really was a major driver for early development, was that people wanted to be able to companies wanted to create a map, placing an icon on that map for each point, whether it's in a manufacturing line for a pre-startup inspection, whether it's another piece of equipment or something else that's being inspected or a process. But they literally wanted to place the person in that by opening that map right where they needed to be, click on the icon, open up the appropriate observation, inspection, or audit form that they're going to use. That was a major driver, plus the ability to be able to use either an image, a graphic, to be able to demonstrate then or illustrate what it is that they're inspecting and what they're looking for. So there's some other very important considerations when in terms of the operating platform that we chose, which Tom's already told you, is the Windows tablet or Windows platform.
Well, gentlemen, I would like to contribute my observation right now. I do a lot of food inspections of food production plants, and the first thing I like to do is to have a conference with the plant manager and look at a map of the facility and ask him, okay, where do the raw materials come in? Where are they processed? How do they flow through the facility, and how do they exit the facility? And then that's how my audit proceeds. So having a map as a visual guide seems to be a very logical way to begin the development of this software.
Well, one thing that, Tom, that we didn't allude to necessarily was the ability now to be able to, once you're in that room, to be able to open a particular inspection or audit, to be able to capture information in the process that you're going through, and then be able to move about the facility and use it even in an audit situation where you're auditing against a set of standards, opening and closing that standard, and adding data as well as photos that you may take as you're going throughout that audit process. So that versatility and adaptability to both inspection, observation, and audit requirements, mobilizing all of those using one software, we think is a real advantage and a potential benefit.
Well, gentlemen, the addition of on-the-spot photographs is another area that's a pet peeve of mine. I love to take photographs and then show them to the manager if they have a challenge with what I'm presenting on microbial challenges, particularly with potential contamination points. And if a facility is conducting their own self-audits on a monthly basis and they're computerized, I could simply sit in the office and click through it, or in a remote location on a periodic basis. But particularly for an annual audit, that could be an excellent, rapid way of evaluating corrective action progress. Let's talk about the system. Your system has a claim of reducing costs, errors, increasing accuracy and efficiency. Could you substantiate that claim?
We certainly can. We have then data tracked and reported through, in this particular case, using the company's enterprise software, where time and costs were being assigned to the collection of data and the transfer of data under the paper-based system, and then later, obviously, documented using the mobile system, inspectiTRAC. And what we discovered was that we think it's a range of 50 to 80% in time reduction for the data collection piece. And quite frankly, Andy, when we saw the data, we were pleasantly surprised, but we quite frankly wanted to understand it more. And we're where we really think that the advantages are, number one, it takes considerably less people. The process is so much more efficient. And so, yeah, the 80%, we have 80%, we documented 80% savings in the data collection. And then what we learned is, with a paper-based system, the time required to transfer the data from the form was either equal to or somewhere between maybe 70 and 100% of the time that it takes to actually collect the data. And we virtually eliminate that, because as soon as that person signs the form and saves the inspection, observation, or audit, that is automatically uploaded then and available.
So, Jerry, you're talking about 80% reduction. Could you eliminate that reduction in cost?
Yes. It seems that the real contributors to the time savings are, and Tom, jump in here, but what we find is that there's considerable time wasted, number one, for people to, once they take the paper form and go out into the plant floor, locating exactly where they need to be, having the right form, and then, of course, the time it takes to physically record that versus simply clicking on certainly pass, fail, or yes, no, or not applicable, and then the time it takes just to physically go through the form and get all that captured and return back to where the paper is stored. So the documented savings that we have with good information, we're going to say 50 to 80%, but we do have documented 80% time reduction in the data collection process. And then from our sources, the time to transfer that is anywhere from 70% of the time it took to collect it. In some cases, we've heard equal time. So we eliminate the data transfer time 100% because the data moves automatically from the tablet into the secure server and is now readily available then however the company chooses to access it and how they're going to use it. So the time savings is considerable.
Well, so the vision is that the various officers, whether they're food production, food quality, food safety, or food security managers, would be walking around with their data input device, which in this case would be a pad or a tablet that's Windows-based, and enter the data directly. And once they sign off on it, it's in the database, and then it can be manipulated by further management. Well, how would that be helpful for internal and external audits?
I think for the internal, audit process, now here again, this allows you to frequently audit or inspect against your certification audit regulation requirements and build up then that database of information that obviously illuminates or uncovers issues and that need corrective action. So it allows a more efficient periodic checkpoints to make sure that what your SOPs, what your standard operating procedures, GMPs, that everything that you incorporate into your plan then is in fact occurring on a consistent basis, and if not, gives you that information to be able to act on, initiate, here again, corrective actions, and make the necessary improvements and changes on a daily, weekly basis.
Well, maybe I can address this question to Tom. What about safety equipment inspections, quality inspections and audits? How about safety observations, maintenance checklists and inspections? Are those items that can be entered into this system easily?
Yes. The system will essentially accept any kind of questions. So any inspections that a company currently does or an audit that a company does can be added to the inspection. And the inspectiTRAC system includes, even in addition to a question with a pass, fail, or yes, no answer, you can also have a not applicable answer and also a drop-down box with, say, a rating scale. And that scale can be anything the company wants or needs to be put in there. And so you can use the system for, again, safety equipment inspections, as you said. Quality inspections are very common, as well as we have a company doing safety observations, essentially 155 of them each month in one plant.
Yeah, so just imagine, instead of all the observation cards, Andy, whether that is safety observation or a quality behavior observation, now instead of those cards need to be filled out and then someone entering that information, here again we're capturing it using the tablet and making it available with no transfer time and labor associated with that component.
And the same would be for maintenance checklists. As long as it has questions, it can be used on an electronic system.
And what we're told on the preventive maintenance is that now with the Windows tablet, we're able to open up other reference guides, CAD drawings, illustrations, to be able to visually have the information you want from a preventive maintenance standpoint, and then be able to do the documentation right on the same tablet. So now instead of carrying around another manual with the product guide or whatever, you can have that electronic right on the tablet or access it via the tablet and be able to do that all in a mobile environment instead of, here again, carrying binders or manuals along with the technician, the maintenance tech.
Well, Jerry and Tom, this has been a very fascinating innovation of computerization, the mobile aspect, and then the entire audit function wrapped into one system. I'd like to now ask you if you could conclude our discussion with a summary of how this system that you've developed, the inspectiTRAC, can actually help food production managers in their audit programs.
I think in summary, Andy, it allows them the flexibility and to be able to take what they're currently doing in a paper-based format and mobilize that, regardless of what the question, the checklist, or the audit process might include. And to be able to put that all into, here again, a software that's easily changed and easily edited as circumstances change, or facility layouts, whatever the map feature, whatever it might be, we give them the software to manage it on site and use the software to meet any and all requirements in that observation, inspection, audit space. And so it really becomes a management tool, a software system that they can use to meet all those requirements. To me, and then giving them that giving the access to the data, accurate data that's been collected, time and date stamped and signed off, easy audit trail access for whatever purpose they're using it for, with third-party certifications and regulators, but just the ability to be able to put that actionable data in front of people that need to use that to, here again, for corrective action purposes or to manage around, and having it readily available, timely to all the stakeholders in and outside of the plant really becomes a valuable tool and resource for them to help their job, quite frankly, manage what they do a whole lot simpler and more efficient.
Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for your gracious allocation of your time and energy for today's interview, and allow you any other closing remarks.
We really appreciate the opportunity to communicate with people that have the needs that you've described and we've described, Andy. We're excited about the potential that inspectiTRAC has to be a benefit to the food industry.
Well, Jerry, I've included your contact information on this interview page, and my hope is that someday every plant that I inspect will be automated, so we don't have to go running around and waiting for documents and looking at crossouts and whiteouts and pencil erasures. But I wish you the best in your pursuits, and particularly the benefits that you offer your clients, an 80% reduction.
Thank you, Andy.
Great. Have a good day.
You as well.
Bye now.